18 months ago, we left life in the city.
We have arrived at our new home.
So how's it going? Well, so much has happened that it'd be impossible to cover it all in one video. So instead, this is just a summary of a few highlights and lowlights, what has made it all worthwhile and what has made us wish we'd never left the city in the first place.
Let's start with a highlight, and it's indoors, which is odd because 99% of our time here is spent on outdoor projects. For a couple of reasons. First, the inside of the property was actually okay, but the outside needed a lot of work. But also, having an outside to work on was just something new and exciting for us.
And we started with this room, the snug. It was small and so an easier project than some of the other rooms might have been, and also because it was kind of a spare room, so it was one that we could work on without causing disruption elsewhere. And it couldn't have gone better. We learned loads of new skills and we have ended up with a room that is absolutely perfect for what we now use it for, which is a kind of Friday night, movie night room, and especially in the winter when it heats up real quick with the log burner going, it's just somewhere nice to come and be snug. And inspired by how well that went, we then ripped the kitchen apart and have literally just completed this. No need to go into too much detail because we've also uploaded the entire build project here onto YouTube recently. But the nice thing about this room is that if the snug gave us the confidence to have a go at DIY projects in general, the kitchen gave us the confidence that we could probably tackle anything this place throws at us. Here we've had plumbing, electrics, carpentry, gas burners, wood burners, we've got metre thick stone walls, we've got ancient flooring. If we could refit the kitchen, we can do anything. And of course, we've also done plenty of content in the past on the transformation of the barn, which is not really inside the house as such and didn't require the sort of finish and attention to detail that we've got going on in here, but equally went as well as we could have hoped. So everything indoors going to plan.
To call the weather a low light is something of an understatement. We were tricked by Mother Nature when we moved here at the end of 24, because that winter the weather was amazing. And all through last summer, the only problem with the weather was that sometimes it got too hot. And then in autumn it started raining and it just didn't stop.
Now when we started house hunting, we saw a property which wasn't suitable for all sorts of reasons, but it had a stream running through the grounds, and we knew immediately we have to find that, which we did. But for all the joy and tranquility and positivity that comes from having this right here, comes the downside that every drop of moisture from miles around wants to make its way here and doesn't really care if you're in the way. The animals hated it, we hated it, it was horrific. We spent far too many days getting soaked to the point of questioning our sanity. The only upside is that the issue wasn't really the weather, it was our lack of being ready for that weather. This year, lots of time is being spent on improving drainage, laying paths, basically making sure that when the water does inevitably come back, it can then leave as fast as it arrived, and we aren't slipping around in mud in the meantime.
But despite the weather, we could always cheer ourselves up with new toys.
Now, I don't know if it's the skills I acquired in the city at buying cool gadgets.
Say hello to my little friend.
Or just luck, but we have, without fail, almost without fail, found that the things we've spent money on to help with the jobs that we need doing here have turned out to be things that we now can't live without. In the city, I was in a perpetual state of buyer's remorse at whatever nonsense I'd had Amazon bring me the day before. Here though, it's buyer's delight 24/7. The tractor, the brush cutter, everything we kitted out the workshop with, the chainsaws. They're all things we spent money on wondering if they'd be a sensible purchase, but now if they disappeared, we'd replace them tomorrow with the very same thing. In fact, the best example of this is the quad bike. I wanted one on day one because it's a quad bike, but I just felt like it was a toy for toy's sake. Hard to justify, but it is now the most used thing we have here. It takes us and our tools to wherever we need to get to, tows huge amounts of weight, it's winched every other toy out of a hole when they've got themselves stuck in one. A full review on it is coming soon because it's worthy of one, but it is definitely a toy that turned out to be essential. In fact, even the truck that I convinced myself would be essential but has turned out to be a bit more of a toy than I thought, when that thing is loaded up with hay or fence posts or livestock on occasion, it feels reassuringly like the right toy for the job. And when you have that, jobs just become nicer to do.
What's not so nice is failure. The most disappointing thing that's happened in the last 18 months was the realisation that some projects that we really wanted to do just haven't happened.
There are lots of these, but the three biggest are fencing, and then the swimming pool project and the pigsty project. This by now is supposed to be a sunken garden, complete with hot tub and fire pit, but it's still just a pit. Time, money, logistics, everything has conspired to stop this moving forward. The same with turning the old pigsty into a sauna. An infrared sauna in our old house was something we used daily, and actually we brought it with us but never put it up because our plan was to convert this into one. But again, time, money, etc. These jobs will happen, just not yet. And when it's something as hard to miss as a huge hole in the ground, it's tricky not to see it as a constant reminder or a death trap. I've always had this thing about animals that I keep not knowing they're in captivity, even when clearly they are. So when I had a fish tank, it was the size of a swimming pool, because I wanted those animals to live and behave like they weren't being confined by me, even though obviously they were. Even the biggest fish tank doesn't really achieve that. But here, we've actually got quite close. So the pigs, for example, roam in just acres of woodland. Not today, they're in their pen locked up because there are people here doing some work and the pigs would be annoying them for fusses. And the chickens are not free range, which in the chicken industry means that there's 15,000 of them in the same shed. No, these chickens are just free. They go where they want. If they wanted, they could just leave. They don't leave, obviously, because like all the animals here, they've got fresh water, an abundance of natural food, and my involvement in their life means they have somewhere safe and warm and dry to spend every night. And then out here in the meadow is the goats and the sheep at the moment. And this literally is the dream that we had 18 months ago when we arrived. Just the animals, just being animals. It is just incredibly cool to be out here and look across the other side in the woods and see the pigs roaming around. And over this side, the sheep, which have obviously been stuffing themselves all day, so they're chilling out at the moment. So this sheep, in reality, I guess she's as confined as my fish were in that tank. But unlike the fish in the tank, she's not banging her head on a wall every 30 seconds. They're not free, but I'm not entirely sure they don't know that. This tree here, Jen dropped that onto the floor. And they have completely stripped it of vegetation. All this stuff goes in the chipper, and then what's left will be firewood. How you doing? This section here is fenced off with an electric fence. There's still acres more land that way, but because we've only got a limited number of animals, if we were to give them all of the land to wander around on, they'd never clear it down. Basically, we need 3 times as many goats and sheep to clear this area. The trouble is, come winter, you then got to feed them because there's not enough for them to eat. There's not enough grass for the sheep. There probably is enough vegetation for the goats, but goats are very fussy. They don't like coming out in the wet and the cold. So it's a balance between having enough animals that we can feed over the winter without spending a fortune on hay, and then still having enough that they can do the job in the summer. Do you know, I'd written some stuff to say about why the animals are such a success story for us here, but I don't need to say any of it really. I'm in an area of undergrowth that is slowly being dealt with by these guys, well, as nature intended they behave, on the banks of the stream. You can see fish swimming around in the river. I mean, you either kind of get this or you don't. Yeah, we have to feed these guys over the winter, and mucking out the stables and stuff in the spring is a bit of a hassle. There is a downside to having the animals, but the return from them, just the pleasure of seeing them out here behaving like this and doing a much needed job, is just an absolute joy.
What's not so joyful is the sense of being completely and utterly overwhelmed, to the point of wanting to turn back the clock and just staying where we were.
So, no question about it, the lowest lows have been the emotional ones. There's not been many of them, but when they hit, normally in the winter at 4 o'clock when it's dark already, and you're cold and you're wet, and you're working all day, just tired, everything's gone wrong. When they hit harder than a tractor or a Jen at the controls. So we have both had times here where it's been miserable. And I suppose the question is, any more miserable than miserable times back in the city? I'm not so sure. I think the difference here is that there's no distraction from it at all. Yeah, before, if we were feeling down, go watch a movie at the local cinema, 5 minutes away. 25 minutes on a train, we're in London for a night out. Half hour to Heathrow, go anywhere in the world, take our mind off it. Here, we're just here. And when it's going good, that's amazing because it's just non-stop good. But when it's not, it is tough. And on top of it being tough, because we made such a big move to come here, there's an element of, what the hell have we done? Something we could do in the city is if somebody was feeling down, the other person or they could just suggest a night out, go and do something, take our minds off it. It's kind of sweeping it under the carpet a little bit. Here, because those options don't exist, we have had to say to each other, this isn't working. Right now, this is bad. Let's fix it. And we have to fix it. We have to discuss exactly what is wrong, if you know, exactly what might make it better, if you know, and then try and implement that. You can't just go and watch a movie because I don't even know where the nearest cinema would be, actually. Ultimately, it might be a more healthy way to be, to communicate like that. But either way, it is not all sunshine and rainbows.
Which brings us to another highlight and a great one to finish on, happiness. It is almost perfect here. And the best way to explain why is to contrast it with our life before.
So we have never had a boring life, far from it. But previously, to achieve that, we had to supplement our day-to-day with more activities. We would fill our time with hobbies and events. Our achievements were obtained at the weekend and they came with a participation medal. Yeah, how can you be bored when there's another High Rocks in the diary? But here we've got none of that. And we do occasionally have time away from it, but it is only very occasionally. We certainly don't have time to spend our weekends running around other people's fields. And there's no need to pay somebody else for a sense of fulfillment, a sense of achievement, because we get fulfillment and achievement right here. And that's cool, because it means that if we commit a lot of time, a lot of effort, money sometimes to something, then yeah, the next day the results of that are evident because we'll walk past whatever it was we did. Yeah, unlike doing a marathon or something. Yeah, we don't need to bring home a medal to hang on the wall. Our medals here are everywhere. Medals as a metaphor, if you're not keeping up. Do you know, interestingly, it kind of feels quite an old-fashioned approach to life to just spend your days working on, hopefully enjoying yourself, your land, your home, with really little regard to what anybody else thinks. In contrast, the kind of the modern way of being is to do nothing but worry about what other people think. Check out my cool car, my new bench press PB, my new Instagram upload. But then your satisfaction is then being dictated by social media algorithms and other people, neither of which I understand too well. Here, our satisfaction at the end of the day is just based on what we did that day for us. And I know that people are going to say that we kind of contradict that by then sticking our lives on social media, but we do that because it's a fun and not particularly hard way to make a living. And we hope people enjoy what we do, but we're not doing it for just clicks and likes. If that was all there were, we'd stop doing it because you can't buy a tractor with clicks and likes. In contrast, if High Rocks put on their next event but gave everyone half-price tickets and said no social media though, there are 4 people turn up. And one of those would be someone there for the home and garden exhibition and just got the dates wrong. No, it's funny because in the city we had an absolute abundance of stuff and had to fight to not be bored. And here, on the surface at least, there's very little. And we have never been less bored in our lives.